friends, welcome to Gallant IAS. This is HEPGEC 2020. Here we discuss important previous year and model questions which are highly probable for your UPSC 2020 preliminary exams. Today, 5 questions we are going to discuss. All these 5 questions are from economy. In economy, inflation part is very important. At least 2 to 3 questions every year will be asked from inflation. So, today's questions will be from inflation. First question, supply of money remaining the same. When there is increase in demand for money, there will be fall in the level of prices, increase in the rate of interest, decrease in the rate of interest, increase in the level of income and employment. What happens when supply remains the same, demand for money increases? Demand for money increases means population needs more money. Assume a situation, you are the only money lender in your village. You are the only money lender in your village. Due to corona pandemic and economic crisis, no one have money in your village. You are the only person. And you are remained with 10 lakh rupees. And you are ready to give to one person this 10 lakh rupees. And you need return interest for this money. And 2 persons, Ramu and Damu, approach you for this 10 lakh rupees. Damu approach you for this 10 lakh rupees. And you can give, dividing this 10 lakh rupees and giving to each of them. You are ready to give to one person. And your interest rate is around 10%. Your interest rate is around 10%. And both of these 2 persons are ready to give you this 10% interest. But you cannot give this 10 lakh rupees to these persons. So what you will do? You will increase your interest. You will increase your interest to 12% or 50% or 60%. And who are the person ready to give increased interest, you will give that money to that person. Because there is enough and more demand for money. So that is the situation. When demand for money increases, then interest increases. When demand for money increases, interest increases. Rate of interest increases. So here answer is an increase in the demand for money will be leads to increase in the rate of interest. Increase in the rate of interest. So the answer is option B. Next question, economic growth is usually coupled with. Economic growth is usually coupled with. First, let's understand all these 4 terms. First, inflation. Inflation is the general price level increase, continuous and persistent general price level increase in your economy. Continuous and persistent general price level increase in your economy is known as inflation, which is price level increase for the commodities, goods and services in your economy. That is inflation. What is deflation? Exact opposite of inflation. Exact opposite of inflation. When price level increases, that is inflation. When price level decreases, that is deflation. And general price level decreases, that is deflation. Exact opposite of inflation. Why inflation happens? When there is excessive demand over supply, that is why inflation happens. If demand equals supply, there will be no inflation. Prices will not change. But demand increase over supply, then prices will increase. Like in the case of money lender, there is more demand, that's why interest increase. So price level increase. When price level increases, general price level increase. General price level increase means inflation. So excessive demand over supply is known as inflation. Excessive supply over demand, it is a cause for deflation. Excessive supply over demand, that is deflation. So that is demand and supply relation. Next, hyperinflation. What is hyperinflation? If inflation gone out of control, about 20% or more, inflation is known as hyperinflation. When a country get into a hyperinflation level, then the inflation gone out of control and the economy will collapse, currency will collapse, it ultimately leads to a financial crisis. So, hyperinflation is not good for any economy. 3. Stagflation. What is stagflation? According to Phillips curve, when there is inflation persists in an economy, it leads to less unemployment. There is negative relationship between unemployment and the inflation rate. If inflation increases, price level changes increases, then unemployment decreases. Why? What inflation means? More demand over supply. If in an economy there is excessive demand over supply, to meet this demand, what we will do? Increase the production. When production increases, more employment will be created. More employment will lead to lesser unemployment. So, increase in inflation and unemployment is negatively related. When inflation increases, unemployment decreases. This is up to a level. Beyond that level, it gone out of control, leads to hyperinflation and economy will collapse. Up to a level, increase in inflation leads to lesser unemployment. So, inflation and unemployment are negatively related. But in the case of stagflation, it is a situation of both existence of higher inflation and higher unemployment. In an economy, when there is higher inflation and also higher unemployment, that situation is known as stagflation. Exact opposite for Phillips curve, stagflation, higher inflation and higher unemployment. That is what stagflation. Here the question is regarding economic growth is usually coupled with. To grow any economy, any individual, there should be higher return for the investment. If we invest 1 lakh rupees by buying a piece of land in 2050, in 2080, when we sell it, the prices may increase to 1 lakh or 50,000 or more. This price rise is due to increase in the price level, that is inflation. So, up to a level of increase in the price level is must for growth of any economy. So, economic growth is coupled with, answer is option B, inflation. Next question, which one of the following statement is an appropriate description of deflation? Sudden fall in the value of currency against other currency? No, that is not deflation. That not leads to deflation, it leads to inflation. When fall in the currency means lesser demand for currency. Lesser demand for currency leads to inflation. Price level increase in the economy. Lesser demand for currency leads to price level increase in the economy. Then that leads to inflation. So first statement is wrong. It is persistent recession in both financial and real sectors of economy. That is not deflation. C. Persistent fall in the general price level of goods and service. That is the definition of deflation. Like we said, persistent fall in the general price level of goods and service. That is, negative inflation is known as deflation. Persistent fall in the general price level of goods and services. Let's check the last option. It is fall in the rate of inflation over a period of time. Don't confuse option C and D. In option D, that is fall in the rate of inflation. Here inflation is there, but the rate of inflation is falling. For example, in 2080, the rate of inflation is 7%. In 2090, the rate of inflation is 6%. 2020, rate of inflation is 5%. Here the rate of inflation is falling, but price level are increasing. There is a 6% increase in the price level from 2080 to 2090. There is 5% increase in the price level from 2090 to 2020. But we comparing the rate of interest, the rate of interest is falling. So that is option D. That situation is known as disinflation, not deflation, disinflation. Disinflation. So here the answer is option C. Next, a rise in general level of prices may be caused by rise in general level of prices. That is what? Inflation. Rise in general level of prices is known as inflation. What are the causes of inflation? Excessive demand over supply. An increase in money supply. Obvious reason. Who are the supplier of money in our economy? Central bank. Every economy, the supplier and the creator of money is central bank. In India, that is RBI. RBI creates money and supplies money to banks, and banks lend it to the general public, which include corporates and individuals and government, general public. So this is how our money supply system functions. When RBI decides to increase the money supply, they will lend lesser to the banks, then banks will be able to lend lesser to the general public. When RBI decides to increase the money supply, they lend more to the banks and banks lend more to the general public. That is how RBI controls the money supply system in our economy. When there is increased money supply, what happens? The general public will be available with more money. If me and you have more money, what we will do? We will purchase more goods and services. We purchase more goods and services. We purchase laptop, computer, TV, car, whatever items what we want. So that more purchase will lead to more demand. Demand will lead to increase in the general price level. Increase in the general price level leads to inflation. So first statement is a cause for rise in general price level. So first statement is correct. A decrease in the aggregate level of output. Like I said, what is the main reason for inflation? Excessive demand over supply. When output level decreases, which means less supply decreases, which means excessive demand over supply. So second statement is also a reason for inflation. 3. An increase in efficient demand. In demand increases, general price level increases. General price level increases, inflation increases. So all of these 3 statements are a cause for increase in general price level. So the answer is option D, 1, 2 and 3. Consider the following statements regarding cost push inflation. There are mainly 2 reasons for inflation. So that reasons can be summed up in 2 heads: demand pull inflation and cost push inflation. Demand pull inflation is the inflation due to demand side factors. Cost push inflation is the inflation due to supply side factors. In demand pull inflation, excessive demand leads to inflation. In cost push inflation, the price of commodities increase, the cost of price of commodities increase ultimately leads to general price level increase, thereby inflation increase. How? To produce any commodities, any goods, whatever items in our economy, in any economy, there needs 4 factors: land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. All these factors have a cost. All these factors have a cost. Land, we need to pay rent. Labor, wages. Capital, interest. Entrepreneurship, profit. The price and the cost of any commodity is a sum of these 4 factors of production cost. If any of these factors cost increases, it increases the total price, total cost of the commodities. When total commodities price increases, it increases the general price level. It ultimately leads to inflation. So that is cost push inflation. Cost becoming the reason for general price level increase and inflation. First statement, increase in factor input cost push up prices, that we have depicted here. Cost push, input factors cost pushing the inflation. First statement is correct. That is one of the reasons for cost push inflation. Second statement, rise which is the result of increase in the production cost is cost push inflation. It is definition of cost push inflation. Rise in the result of increase in the production cost ultimately leads to cost push inflation. That is cost push inflation. So here the statements, both of them are correct. So the answer is option C, 1 and 2. Keep watching. Thank you.